Good evening. Favourite part of a live video is the weird bit where you just sat staring at yourself and there's no one there. That's always strange. Hello everybody. There's a few people that have joined, I can see. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? Hello. Hi, Aline. It's not like Instagram where you can wave at people. I always like that. You could just wave back at them. I always like that because it's easy. Hi, Deborah. Hi, Sue. Hi, Susan. How is everybody? Hi, Chelsea. How are you? Hello, George. Hi, Colin. Hello, everybody. Your son asked you if it's perfume bar tonight. It is perfume bar night tonight. I like that. Someone the other week, they said that it was, are you having like your perfume geek talk or something? I also liked that. Hi, everybody. I hope you've got a drink, a suitable beverage. I have velvetized and I've got hot chocolate. Salted caramel, because it's my favourite. And I have to try and drink it before I start talking, because then it'll just go cold, which is what happens on every other one of these lives. Chelsea is manning the Escentual account. Hi, Chelsea. You're in charge. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Hester. Nice to see you. George, you can't see me. Can everyone else see me? I hope everyone can see me. George is saying he can't see me. Can someone just tell me that they can see me? Please. Because I'd be worried otherwise. Hi, Jade. Hi, Marta. Hi, everyone. I hope you've got your boxes ready. You've got your drinks ready, your tester strips, your notes, whatever you need. Is my camera working? I think it is. I think it is. I can see myself. Can somebody tell me that they can see me? Because George is saying he can't see me. Okay, Deborah said that they can see me, no problem. George, maybe you might have to restart Facebook and come back. I think it's a you issue and not a me issue. I'm sorry, George. You're probably, if you can hear me and not see me, you're probably lucky. Great. Hi, everybody. Just let a few more people join. Oh, okay, I get it. George is playing a prank on me because I'm wearing camo. And I've fallen for the joke again. This is so not fair, George. I'm going to really get you back for that. So I tweeted the other day because I was on a Zoom call and the exact same thing happened where someone said, oh, I can't see you. I can't see you. And I spent ages faffing around with my camera. And it was because I was wearing this exact same camo shirt. And now George has done the same thing to me again. And you're just lucky it's lockdown, George, because you would be in trouble for that. Yes, George was pranking me. Very lovely. Thanks, George. George is booted from the group now. You can see me. Good. Everybody can see me. Great. That's brilliant. I'm happy with that. Okay, well, I think we're up to 72 people, so I think we're just going to get cracking. Sorry if I've not said hello to you all, but I'm saying hi. I'm seeing you all join. How are you doing? We are here for Florals. I hope you've all enjoyed this box. I think this one has been a very exciting box, actually. We've had so much discussion around the Florals box, and some really, really interesting viewpoints from everybody. Some people who just have absolutely loved everything, people who've not loved everything, and all that's in between. So it's been good fun. Yes, if you need a toilet break, just go now. We're just doing the intro bit. Before we jump in, go for your toilet breaks now. That's what I would say. Please do not encourage George for his hijinks. He's in trouble. Okay, so if this is your first time joining us on the live, then hello and welcome. I know that we've had a lot of new members since this box came out, and it's been really lovely to see that. I think we've just had an influx of people. I'm still annoyed at George. I can't get over that. I'm really annoyed at him. Please don't encourage George. Please don't encourage him by telling him he's funny. Yes, it's the camo. Yes. I'm burning this shirt after night. So it's got me so much trouble this week. I bought this shirt and thought it looked lovely, and all it's caused me is grief. Anyway, moving on. So for those of you who have not joined before, I'm going to go over the kind of housekeeping bits just to tell you what we're going to do, and then we'll jump straight into it. So As you know, fragrance is a massive part of Escentual's heritage. We have an amazing selection of brands, both mainstream and niche, and we've always tried to curate a really special selection of fragrances from perfume houses that we love, that kind of sell, you know, really beautiful scents that kind of really explore the art of perfumery in so many different ways. And we know that with lockdown, it's been a lot harder to try and sample things. So we thought we would bring the sampling to you, and we wanted to do it in a way that was educational, but also fun. So that's the whole kind of crux of Escentual Scents, is that we are bringing you fragrances that you perhaps may not have ever tried before, so that you can just explore without any preconceived notions of what you're getting. So no brands to distract you, no bottles to distract you, no notes, no descriptions. It's all on you to work out what you're smelling and also whether you like it or not. And we can bring you fragrances that maybe you would never try, or from brands you would never try before. So we've done blind trials before. We've done them sort of yearly or annually for the last couple of years, and now we're doing them monthly. So this month is Floral, and we are doing the first live tonight, and we're going to reveal the first 4 fragrances, so A to D. And then in 2 weeks' time, we will do the other 4 fragrances, which will be E to H, because that is how the alphabet works. So I'll do the bit now where I say the live will last 30 minutes, and you'll laugh at me because it's going to probably take double that. I'll probably be speaking after an hour. I apologise, but this is our Perfume Geek Night, and this is what we do. There's no right or wrong. So that's the one thing that I really want to stress, is what you smell is what you smell, and that's valid. And it's not really about guessing the notes. It's not even about guessing the fragrances right. It's just about describing the experiences that you're getting when you're smelling it. So that's all it's about. Please, I encourage you to sort of join in with the comments, ask questions, say what you're smelling. We're going to smell along as we go. Interact in the Facebook group as we go, take selfies with your boxes, etc., etc. Any of those things is all good. Okay, and Deborah's already laughing at me for saying 30 minutes. I know, I like to talk. I can't help it. So, hi to everybody who's joining. We're going to jump in. So, let's talk about florals, because before we go into talk about the fragrances, we always look at what this fragrance family is. And I think when we've done them before, so we've done 2 other boxes. We've done green and we've done sheep. And with the sheep genre, it was kind of like, well, what does that mean? It's a bit of an odd name. And what are those fragrances? And with green as well, it's about defining specifically what those were. With florals, it's a lot easier, because it's a nice, easy question to answer. You know, what is a floral? It's a perfume that showcases the beauty of flowers. That's essentially what it is. It's a floral perfume that showcases flowers. You like my cup? Thank you. It's from Hotel Chocolat. It's a hot chocolate cup. It's very fancy, because I am very fancy, if you didn't know. And I'm drinking it before it gets cold, because I'm talking so much I'm not actually drinking it. So a floral fragrance is a fragrance that showcases flowers. It's as easy as that. And that can be so many different things. It can be what we call a soliflor, which is a fragrance that just looks at one particular flower. It could be a sort of bouquet of flowers, or it can be so many other things kind of in between there. It's really, really varied. So this is a massive and diverse genre. I would say probably one of the most diverse genres there are, because it's just overlapping with all of the others so regularly. You know, florals overlap with every fragrance family, whether it's green, gourmand, woody, warm, etc. There's so many. So floral is probably one of the biggest genres, I would say, with the biggest diversity. So historically, most modern fragrances were floral and were sold as single flower bouquet. So, you know, back we're talking in sort of the early 1900s, it wouldn't be very difficult to find a fragrance called lavender or a fragrance called rose. And they were really just fragrances that celebrate that one flower. And then as we started sort of progressing through the century, things became more abstract, and we were looking at fragrances based on concepts rather than just talking about one flower. And obviously the most famous floral perfume that probably changed things was Chanel No. 5. And as you'll know, Chanel No. 5 is 100 years old this year. It's celebrating its centenary. So Chanel No. 5 was a fragrance created to smell artificial. So it was meant to smell of flowers, but flowers that were created and crafted in the same way that Coco Chanel would create clothing and use fabrics to create something new. It was meant to smell artificial. And obviously that's a very famous aldehydic floral. So really from that point onwards, florals became so much more than just showcasing one flower. So technology's also developed a lot since then, and we've developed new materials and discovered new materials, both natural and synthetic. So maybe, new floral materials, but also materials that work to bolster florals, whether they're synthetic aroma chemicals that can kind of make florals smell more floral. And technology is also developed in the sense that we can extract materials in ways that we were never able to, back when perfumery was still relatively new. So we've got new ways of abstracting that. And, some flowers smell really beautiful, but actually they don't yield any oil. So perfumers have to reconstruct the smell with other materials. Gardenia famously yields no usable oil in perfume. So every Gardenia fragrance you smell is a construct. And perfumers have to go in and technically reproduce that using other materials to create the impression of something that we all know, that's so distinct, which is the smell of Gardenia. They can use technology such as headspace to do this, which is where they capture the molecules around a flower and analyze that data to see what molecules are in the air and then recreate that using other materials. But also oils from flowers can smell vastly different from the actual flower itself. If you smell lots of rose materials, and if you've been lucky to smell any rose materials, there are so many of them, they don't necessarily smell of rose. They smell a bit rosy. They have like a rose facet to them, and they're very, very complex chemicals filled with lots of different molecules, but they don't necessarily smell of rose. So actually, when you smell a rose fragrance, it smells like roses on the bush. It's a very clever piece of work that's been created with lots of different materials to smell like a rose. So I think florals really showcase the talent of perfumers and the innovation of materials, because it's not just as easy as squeezing a rose to get some oil and then putting it in a perfume. It's a lot more technical than that, because we have such distinct relatable reference points with flowers. We know that they're there, so we know what they smell like. So you have to get it right, otherwise it doesn't smell right. So I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I would say that florals are probably more of a feminine genre. I think historically people have said that, women wear florals, men wear woody fragrances, but I don't necessarily think that's important. Many men do wear florals. Historically, going back to the early of the 19th century, the 1900s, it would be that men would wear floral perfumes. And it's also incredibly cultural as well. In other countries, such as in the Middle East, men will wear florals more so than women. So it really, really depends on where you're from and obviously which century you're from as well. And I think men are more open to it. I remember a few years ago, sort of 10 or 15 years ago, Jean-Paul Gaultier released a fragrance called Fleur du Mal. And I don't know if any of you remember that. It was a flanker of Le Mal, but called Fleur du Mal. And it didn't sell, and I think that was probably because they called it Fleur de Mal, and men were just like, no, I'm not wearing flowers, which was a shame because it was a really good fragrance. But I think that's changing now. I think we're opening our minds to different things, and the explosion of niche, which is obviously not gendered, has really helped with that. So, onto the box then. The first half of the box showcases 4 of the key types of floral. So this first half, what I've tried to do is show you 4 different types of floral. What I haven't done is shown you a rose, an iris, a jasmine. I've not done it that way. I'm not trying to show you individual flowers. I'm trying to look at the different subgenres of florals. The second half of the box, which is E to H, and we'll come on to that when we do that live, those are more about twists on florals, so where they can go a bit more interesting and strange. So in A to D, we have an abstract floral, we have a white floral, we have an aldehydic floral, and we also have a fantasy floral as well, which sounds very exciting. So shall we jump in and explore them? Are you ready to do the reveal? Do you have any questions? Can I please just take a sip of my hot chocolate? Okay. Pip says, it annoys me that fragrances are gendered. It annoys me too, and I very regularly say to people in a very inelegant way that fragrances do not have genitalia. So they are for anybody who wears them, wants to wear them. I think we are so tied up in the kind of the societal construct of gender that, people find it hard to navigate between that. And also the industry doesn't help because it puts it, if you go into a store, you have men's on that side and women's on that side. And I think that's one great thing about doing it online and Escentual is that obviously everything is accessible anyway. You can just browse through it without having to you know, walk around and decide that you're going to look at the feminine side or the masculine side. So yeah, it annoys me that they're gendered too. Okay, everybody's ready. I'm going to move on. Let's talk about fragrance A. Everybody's ready. Have you got your sample here? I've got mine. For ease, I'm going to spray from the bottles, but I'm going to do it out of the shot because then I'd ruin it, wouldn't I? And that would be really bad. Floral from Another Planet sounds awesome. That would be great. A moon floral would be nice. Right, so first one is A. What do we think of A? I think A is kind of, looking at the poll that I did, A was at the very bottom of the poll. And I think that it's kind of perhaps not everybody's favourite. But I really like this fragrance. I've picked this because it's an example of an aldehyde floral. And I thought we have to start with an aldehyde floral because the most famous floral perfume in the world is Chanel No. 5. And that's an aldehyde floral. So I was like, let's do that. Deborah wants to know which one is the fantasy floral in caps. Yes, we will get to the fantasy floral if you are patient. Okay, so Amanda says she loves A. It's a massive white floral. Jasmine, tuberose, gardenia. Feels quite old school, but I love it. It feels very out of Africa. Heady nights in exotic locations. I like that. So it's aldehyde floral. I think you could also say it's probably a bit of a green floral as well, but I'm going to say mostly aldehyde because I'm in charge and that's what I want to do. It's a brilliant example of a beautiful floral bouquet. So it's not showcasing any one flower, it's showcasing a kind of a whole bouquet of wonderful flowers. I think it feels very floral, but in a classic way. You can smell that it's floral, but it's difficult to identify individual flowers in there. And yes, it does feel a bit dated. I can't lie. It is a bit dated. I think enough time has passed with this fragrance for it to come back round again, because we're in this position now where everything is so sweet, it's so sugary, that this kind of stands out as feeling quite new to me. I might just be insane. So I think it could just be back in fashion again, just maybe. So Lisa says classic, Carl says dewy, lily white floral. Tamsin saying nostalgic, yeah. Susie says it's like kissing a powdered cheek at first, but then honey, sun, warm skin. Yeah, I can't argue with that. It's lovely. So I think most people identified this as something classic or old-fashioned in style. Fanny said it was giving her orange blossom vibes. Carol said she and her husband liked it, calling it elegant and fresh. Lynn said it smells lovely and floral with gardenia and sweet pea. And a sweet pea was a note that was mentioned quite a lot in reference to this fragrance. Carol called it light and fresh and elegant. Claire said it was nostalgic. Sophie said it was musky and soap-like. And I think all of those things are true. For me, it's definitely more classic fragrance. For me, it's quite dry. I don't know if anyone else agrees. It feels very, very dry. It's quite crisp. You get kind of that sort of sparkling rush of aldehydes at the top, but it's not as in up your sort of whooshing up your nose in the same way that Chanel No. 5 is. It's a little bit dry, a little bit crisper. It's definitely soapy. But there's this lovely sort of flash of greenery. Like it's almost like dry leaves in there. Which I think kind of gives it almost like a sheep feel. And the bouquet itself is quite sweet and powdery. There's like jasmine and tuberose and orange blossoms. It's kind of all of those lovely little things hitting little spots. It's a little bit sweet. It's got some freshness to it. It's quite powdery, but it's also quite soapy and clean. And that's what I really like about it. It has this hazy, steamy quality to it. That I just think smells like squeaky clean. It's very fresh out of the shower. And I would say it's very pastel coloured to me. It's quite muted. I don't feel like it's vibrant or neon or bright. Lucy's saying it reminds her of YSL Reeve Ghost. Yeah, I can see that. It's kind of the same ballpark, same sort of aldehyde crispness. Sarah's saying really dry. Absolutely. Flower shop at the market. Absolutely. Yeah, you get that kind of rush of florals, don't you? Okay, so any guesses on what this one is before I reveal it? I think a few people may know. I think Amanda's saying it feels very familiar, and I think that's the one thing that kept coming up with this fragrance is that everyone's like, I know this. And I think that may be because you know the fragrance, but I think also this style was so prevalent at one time that we all have experienced it in some form or another. So if it's not this one, it is Reeve Gauche or No. 5. They've all got a very similar vibe. Hayden saying like his nan's just got out of the bath. Lovely. I think that's what I look for in a fragrance, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie. That's entirely my olfactory aesthetic, is a nan getting out of the bath. Okay, so this one is, drum roll please, It's Anais by Cacharel. This was created in 1978, I believe. And it's by 4 perfumers. They're not really any famous perfumers, really, that I recognise in the name. And that's quite, I think, uncommon at the time for 4 perfumers to work on a fragrance. And this was really aimed at the youth market when it came out. They were kind of pitching it at adolescents. And then double name comes from the idea that the fragrance was there to appeal to many women. It was meant to be kind of almost like this collegiate harem type, you know, lots of girls wearing the fragrance. It's not kind of just, it's not a power fragrance. It's kind of like a friendly, kind of appealing fragrance. It's a very classic floral bouquet. There's orange blossom, tuberose, jasmine, iris, carnation for a bit of spice. And what makes it unique, I think, is that dry, steamy quality. It feels like a steam room filled with flowers. And I think that just kind of really sums it up for me. It's crisp, it's green, it's powdery. And it's just so familiar. It's really, really cozy and comforting. Because of that soapy character, it makes you think of clean linen. I think of kind of like linen sheets just hanging on a summer's day in the breeze. Yes, a lot of people do say Anais, but if we want to be posh and French, we would say Anais. And it sounds a lot better, and we can, you know, be cool in front of our friends. I think it's an underrated classic when it's compared to its contemporaries, things like Number 5 and Rive Gauche. But I think it's a worthy sister to those fragrances. I find it really easy to wear. I think it makes a really good modern day masculine. It may be a little bit dated as a feminine, but as a masculine, it's quite dry, it's quite powdery, it's quite clean and soapy. So I think it's a really nice fragrance. So my question to you, and let's hold this up so you can see it a bit better. There you go, Anais. They've changed the name slightly, actually. It's called Anais L'Original now. I think that's because they did a number of flankers of it. But this is the one that you want. We'll put the link up. It's £28 for 30ml eau de toilette. So my question to you, before we move on to B, which is the one I think everybody is chomping at the bit to know what it is. If this was a pop star, who would it be? So if fragrance A was a pop star, who would it be? That is my question. I shall wait for an answer. So Rakesh is saying it was the first fragrance that had a collectible range of gifts. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Alison said her sister had it in the 80s when she was 16. That's why it's familiar. I think everybody knows somebody who's worn this, or something very, very similar anyway. Yeah, the advert was very memorable. Selena's saying she wore it when she was 16, which was not in the 70s, just for clarification. Noah's also massively underrated. I think the whole Cacharel range is underrated, to be honest. I think there's some real gems in there. We did Eden in the green box. I also love Lulu because it's just bonkers. But that's a whole other live talking about that. So, we've got Jennifer Aniston, Kylie, Cher. I'm really happy. I think, can we stop at Cher? Because there's nothing better than that. Ellie Goulding. Someone very clean cut. Yeah, I can say someone clean cut. Maybe a Carrie Underwood style. Like kind of big hair, but soapy and clean. Bonnie Tyler. Lovely. Love a bit of Bonnie Tyler. She did us proud at Eurovision. She did Eurovision, right? Okay, now we're getting to it. Joni Mitchell, Debbie Harry. That's cool. Yeah, I can see Debbie Harry in a cloud of this. It's probably the most mispronounced fragrance ever. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Although, I will come to this later actually. There's one of these fragrances that I've heard the most hilarious mispronunciation. So I will share that. But if I were to share it now, I would probably spoil something. Des O'Connor. Okay. You're in the naughty bin with George Hayden for Des O'Connor. Celine Dion. Yeah, I think Celine Dion would smell like this. Barbara Windsor. Shirley Bassey. Okay. We're getting a mixture of current people, but we are going for mostly legacy acts, shall we say. Right. Who wants to do B? I'm really excited about B. Dare I talk about fragrance B? Dare I even mention it? Because this one has divided the group in a way that no other fragrance in any box has. I think some loved it, some hated it, very few were on the fence. There were lots of comments of, I love it, I think it's wonderful, and just simple one-word answers of disgusting, I hate it, I never want to spray it again. So B certainly, yeah, be certainly divided opinion, I think. So why did it divide opinion though? What is so interesting about B or different about B or kind of divisive about B? What makes it be the way that it is? Well, it's a white floral. So to understand that, let's talk white florals. What are they and why are they difficult? They are some of the more difficult fragrances to get on with, and that's because the flowers they showcase, things like jasmine, tuberose and gardenia, are quite pungent things. But why are they pungent? Well, when you think about flowers in the wild, they are looking to pollinate. They're looking to, attract bees and other insects to come and sample their goods and then obviously pollinate with other flowers. That's how nature works. Don't ask me to go into more detail. But with white flowers, don't have all of the beautiful colours that coloured flowers have to kind of attract people. And by people, I mean bees. So what they have to rely on is scent. So they have created and developed over thousands of years very pungent odours to attract buzzy things. And they are therefore incredibly complex. So I think this fragrance is the perfect example of a white floral because it perfectly recreates the scent of one particular white flower. But can anybody guess which flower it is? I'd be interested to know which white flower, so that's a flower that is white with no coloured petals, do you think this fragrance is? See, we're already getting the conversation, already getting the comments, wet nettles, headache in a bottle, avoid white floral. Yeah, I mean, if you're not a white floral person, then that's fine. And I think also what's great about these boxes is that we can show you what you don't like as much as you do like. And I think that really, really helps. Susie says, I feel divided about B. I think it's got lots of tuberose and I find that difficult to wear. This smells haughty and cold, an operatic diva, but quite brittle. Someone I admire and was think beautiful, but was also terrified of. Were you talking about me there? I love tuberose, but not this tuberose. Tuberose is the answer. We're getting lots of tuberose. Yeah. So it's a tuberose. Yeah. Only one person has actually guessed what this fragrance is, which I think is really, really interesting. So looking at the comments then. So Sophie said it was just a no for her, just a big no. And she, and I quote, could not. It reminded her of standing in a wet field, which I thought was a really interesting description because there's lots of that. Lots of wetness, lots of sort of dampness, I think, and sort of dark greenery, I think has been mentioned. George said it was his kind of tuberose. He called it bright, sweet, meaty and rubbery. Alexandra said it was very familiar and reminded her of Sunflowers by Elizabeth Arden. Claire said it was really quite offensive and she'd never spray it again. So I don't think Claire liked it very much. She did love that it had an aquatic vibe though. So there is that. Someone else said it was more mature and they liked it once it dried down. And that was a comment I saw a lot, was actually the top notes were really quite challenging, but once they got to the dry down, they enjoyed it more. Phoebe said it was like medicinal bubblegum. Kiwi said it wasn't for the faint-hearted and felt it had patchouli. So let's smell it then. Let's spritz some B, if you've got yours with you. Lots of comments on this one. I don't think anybody didn't have an opinion. Susie says it could be fracas. Yeah, I think, so I'm wearing fracas this evening because I thought white flowers and florals, I should wear fracas because why not? I'm wearing an impolite amount of fracas, which surprisingly is not that much. It's not that, but it's close. It's in that kind of area. How can B be a floral? Well, it's a massive floral. It's got a lot of one particular material in it. So this, for me, is just so heady tuberose that I don't know what else to say. It's just really green. It's really fleshy. It's really camphor and menthol and intense. It's got a pepperiness to it as well, which I find that you get in a lot of tuberose fragrances. And then it gets very, very green and mossy. It's absolutely massive in the initial spray. It's not shrinking violet by any means. And then it goes really, really soft in the dry down and almost goes down to like this kind of like mossy greenery thing. I think it's a dramatic fragrance, but I think there is also a freshness to it that makes it very wearable if it's the kind of fragrance that you like. I don't think it's something that would have to be an evening wear or, you know, a special occasion fragrance. A lot of people are mentioning about sweetness like bubblegum, and I think that's certainly something that we see in tuberose. No, it's not an amouage again. You can all not worry about that. This one is not a very expensive amouage. This one I think is just really, really dramatic. And that's tuberose down to a T. I also think it's a really good example of what I would say is kind of like a photorealistic floral. It's a white floral, yes, but it's really creating that image of a tuberose. This is what tuberose smells like. Okay, so any guesses on what this one is? Only one person in the group has actually mentioned what this is. It's not fracas. It's not carnal flower. Madonna loves fracas, yeah, she wears fracas. Although now she wears Portrait of a Lady by Frederic Malle, apparently. Which I'm sure Frederic Malle was really happy about because they probably sold a lot of bottles after that. A la Nuit by Serge Lutens, yeah, that's an interesting guess. Okay, Talk and Review is saying they admit the far drown is a million times better, but that isn't saying much, to be honest. I mean, yes, you've got to get to that dry down, haven't you? That takes a while. Okay, so we haven't guessed it yet, so I will reveal. This one is Gardenia Passion by Gutow, brand formerly known as Annick Gutow, but it's called Gutow now. This came out in 1989, so it's very of its time. It's £108 for 100ml eau de parfum. There's a really fun story about this fragrance. So the US distributor for Gutow in the 80s begged Annick Gutow to create a gardenia fragrance for the American market because American women love gardenias and it would sell like hotcakes. The only problem with that is that Annick Gutow hated gardenia, which is why this fragrance is actually a tuberose. So it's this really strange thing where it's called Gardenia Passion, but it's also an absolutely massive tuberose. There's a bit of cognitive dissonance going on there, but there you go. If you've never smelled tuberoses, they are intensely green and fresh. They have a fleshy, heady character. They're also very sweet and bubblegum-like, and they are intense in their odour. They have such a distinct odour profile. And what's kind of really wonderful about tuberoses is it fills a room. If you have, a vase of tuberoses, you're going to smell them everywhere. They're not related to the rose in any way. The tuber comes from the tuberous roots that they have. It's got nothing to do with the rose. What's really funny to me is that tuberose absolute is quite something. If you ever smelled tuberose absolute on its own, you would think, who on earth would put this in a perfume? It smells so meaty. It smells like raw meat and camphor. And it's one of those fragrances that really needs to be used in small amounts and dressed up with lots of other materials to smell beautiful. And I think this one is a really photorealistic rendition of tuberoses in bloom. I think it's really beautiful. It has stem-like greenery, but also that cool camphor element. When you're smelling it, it's almost medicinal. And this comes from a group of materials which are called salicylates. And salicylates are used very regularly in floral perfumes because they bolster the effect of florals. I remember at the beginning I said that, if you're trying to create the smell of a flower, we can't just put tuberose absolute in there and leave it. It has to be dressed up and all the facets have to come from somewhere else. So the salicylates can kind of amp up that camphor element, but also the sweetness and the headiness of the florals. And they complement them as well. There's not a huge amount of sweetness here. So fracas has been mentioned quite a lot. So fracas is very, very sweet. It's very, very warm. I think it's got kind of much more of a buttery feel to it. It's very, kind of sort of bodices and corsets and things like that. But this isn't this. I think this is a lot fresher, a lot greener. It's not a blonde bombshell of a scent. And I think it's more faithful to the flower itself. I would say the contemporaries of this fragrance are things like Carnal Flower by Frederic Malle, which is a very straight up tuberose, and also Kilian's Beyond Love. It's a ripe tuberose flower wrapped in dark green vines. And it's definitely not a gardenia, which is really strange. The bottle is beautiful, yeah. I love this. It's a perfect Secret Santa gift for somebody you don't like at the office. That's a very high stakes gift, I would say. Marc Jacobs Gardenia Splash. Yeah, that's a very, very light gardenia. But remember, this is called gardenia, but it's actually a tuberose. It doesn't smell anything like a gardenia. Gardenias are cheesy and mushroomy and sweet and fizzy. This is not a gardenia at all. This is an absolute joy of a tuberose. Amanda said she loved it. Sue says, I seem to don't like the expensive ones. That's good. You prefer the Jo Malone Tube Rose. It doesn't have a sickly initial hit. Yeah, that's quite a fresh, that Jo Malone one, the Tube Rose Angelica. Yeah, so, you know, this one had quite a lot of votes, actually. I think it was third in the list, but it was most divisive. But on the poll, it still had people who loved it. Hayden says, I haven't tried this one from Gutow, but my wife has Nuit et Confidence from the same house, which is gorgeous. Yeah, they do some lovely things. Song is just absolutely gorgeous. I also really enjoy Bois d'Adrienne as well. I think that's really lovely. They've done some lovely fragrances. So not for everybody, this one, but I think it's a really lovely tube rose and a perfect example of a white floral. And white florals, as we know, are a little bit tricky. So if this was a colour, what colour would it be? If you were to pick, having smelled this fragrance, what would you say what colour is it? For me, I would say it's really kind of an ombre effect from white to green, maybe with a bit of yellow in the middle, if I'd be fancy. So it's a brand that you've seen but never purchased or smelt until beer. Yeah, I think Gutow is kind of still a bit of a hidden gem. They were one of the very first niche brands, really, that were very successful. They do some really, really beautiful things. And being a niche brand, they can afford to not, to make things that are a little bit more divisive like this, because they're making it in smaller batches. It doesn't, they don't have to sell 1 million bottles, which is nice. They can do experimental things. So in terms of colour, we're getting neon yellow, pale green, yellow. Yeah. Antique white. Lovely. So safe to say that I think B was one that people had opinions on. It caused a stir, and that's fine. I'm happy with that. So, yeah, you've got lots of yellows, you've got some purples, greens. Okay, fab. Let's move on to Fragrance C. I love Fragrance C. I think Fragrance C is absolutely gorgeous. This one really seemed to strike a chord with most of you. And I think, again, like Anais, it's one we've all encountered at some point, whether we've worn it or someone else we know has worn it. And this is the one that I mentioned at the beginning. I was going to talk about a fantasy floral. And this is the fantasy floral in the box. So what is a fantasy floral? Well, these are perfumes that take inspiration from flowers that don't exist in reality. So a good example is Comme des Garçons Floriental. That's not this fragrance, but that's an example of a fantasy floral, because with that fragrance, Comme des Garçons wanted to create the smell of a fragrance that doesn't exist, of a flower that doesn't exist. A fantasy floral can also be a fragrance inspired by a flower that doesn't have a scent. So in the case of Fragrance C, the flower here is one that exists. It's a real flower, but itself is a flower that has no smell. So the fragrance is actually really taking inspiration from something really, really abstract. There's no reference point because the flower itself doesn't smell. So they've tried to create the smell of what they think that flower would smell like if it had a smell. So looking at the comments, Carl, when he was talking about this one, said the first thing that he thought of when smelling the fragrance was Parma Violet Sweets. And this came up a lot. Lots of people were saying that they got sort of that Parma Violet vibe. Aline said it was very powdery, like talcum powder. And this was another theme that came up, was this kind of cosmetic vibe about talcum powder or face creams, hand creams. Susan said she felt it had a chocolate note, and Kate said it was intense baby lotion. Sean said it could be something violet-based, like Guerlain's Insolence or Après Lundi. Sean called it spicy and said it reminded her of a trip to India. Oh no, sorry, I think that's a wrong one. Sorry, Lisa said it was sticky caramel with light musk. Someone else mentioned it was pink Radox bath soak. I jotted that down when I saw it on the group, but I didn't see who said that. So if you're watching, tell me who said that, because I think that was really interesting. And George said it was a bit of makeup, kind of like face cream or powder. And lots of people are saying that it's a little bit sweet, a little bit almondy, powdery, musky, comforting. Just looking back through, these are the sort of words that I'm seeing: powdery soft, refreshes Parma Violets. And I'd say all of that it feels true for me, because it is really, really a comforting fragrance, very soft and plush. And I think really there's no secret in what this one is. Everybody seems to know. That's because it's such a distinct, iconic fragrance. Hester says she found it rather cloying, a bit too violety and patchouli-ish, I think. Interesting. This has such an interesting blend of textures and tones for me. I'm going to spray it while I'm here. which is no mean feat because the bottle is actually massive. I'll show you in a moment, but it is a comically large bottle that I've got here. It's on the one hand, it's warm and powdery, and on the other, it's fresh and mineral. So there's a real kind of stark contrast between those two things. It definitely has that cosmetic vibe. It's like face powder or hand creams or a really nice face cream. And it certainly takes cues from like the classic Guerlains, things like Le Bleu, which are very, very powdery and a little bit spicy. I think it's just very modern. It's got this kind of urban feel to it because it feels that it has like that very nice mineral freshness, which I think takes it just away from being just a standard powdery floral. And I think of the four, I would say this is probably my favourite. I think it's just lovely. And everyone's saying it's like very, very easy to wear. Chelsea said her niece loved it. It's definitely sweet. Not sure you could wear it. That's fair enough. It depends how you like what your sweet tolerance is. Lisa essentially got confused with two friends from work on this one. Powdery, soapy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, yeah. Sort of lodge in the back of your throat when you smell it. Really dry. Interesting. I don't get dryness from it. But it's cosmetic but fresh, yeah. Peppery violets initially, yeah. So this one, which it will be no surprise to anybody because everybody has guessed it, is Flower by Kenzo. This is the Eau de Parfum. This is the 100ml size, which is, it's a bit of a weapon, this. It's a massive. When it arrived, I kept staring at it going, I didn't realise it was so massive. So this came out in the year 2000, so it is from the turn of the millennium, and it was created by Alberto Morillas. You will know him because he's the gentleman that created CK1. He's also creating all of the interesting Gucci fragrances like Gucci Bloom and Memoire d'une Odeur and all of the weird sort of funky little things they're doing at Gucci. He has his own brand called Mise en Cire. He's a very cool guy. And this is £39 for 30ml. It aims to create the scent of the poppy, which has no fragrance. So it's completely abstract. It's a total fantasy. It's very modern. There's an urban feel brought to a classic flower. So they're trying to reinterpret that classic powdery floral and make it ready for the new millennium. I can see everybody celebrating that they got it right. Well done, everybody. Deborah saying the hardest bottle to merchandise ever. Yeah, I imagine the shelves aren't big enough for this. There are 3 accords in this fragrance. So there's a floral accord, which is predominantly rose. It's got acacia and May blossom. There's a vibrant accord, which is the Parma violet and the pink pepper. And then a powdery accord, which is white musk and bourbon vanilla. So it's kind of playing with those things. It's floral, it's vibrant, it's powdery. I think it's got a lovely contrast between the warmth of cosmetic powder with the mineral freshness of fresh blossoms and musk. And I think this is one of those examples of a really beautiful bottle. It's just a work of art. It's inspired by the shape of bamboo, I believe. And what's really gorgeous is each size of the bottle has a different, it sort of shows a different stage of the flower in bloom. So the 30ml is kind of a flower, sort of almost wilting. It's opening up in the 50ml, and the 100ml, it's really kind of full bloom, which I think is lovely. And they all kind of lean different ways. Kenzo liked doing that because with their Amour bottle, it was all different colours. So I think it's kind of cool that they do that. Sophie has an unopened bottle of this. It's not what I expected. I thought this would be overly floral. I really like that what they've done with it is they've reinvented the idea of what a poppy could smell like because it doesn't have a smell. So instead of going something really, really fresh and floral, they've kind of gone for this whole... I'm just reading all the comments of people saying that I need to use the Force because it looks like a lightsaber. And I look like I'm accepting an award. Yeah, so I'd like to thank Escentual for sending me this. And for giving me the Force with my lightsaber. I've lost my train of thought now. That happens so regularly. Yes, I think it's a lovely thing. And it's an absolute weapon. It looks like something else, not an award. Okay, we will behave ourselves now. We are not going into that naughty. Although, yes, it does. It has nothing to do with poppies, I agree. And that's the idea, is that they've recreated something completely abstract. So... they have the kind of the world was their oyster when they were creating this. They can, I think that's really exciting. What does a poppy smell like? Well, in the eyes of Kenzo, it's this. I think this is timeless. I think it's one of those fragrances that will be around for a long time. It's always in sort of bestsellers lists, especially in Europe, because it's just so easy. And yes, I would like to thank Pugsley, mainly for being asleep and not barking or snoring during this live, because he normally would do. What was the main in this game? Yeah, so the florals in this are, there's a rose, there's a May blossom and violets. are in this. Violets are a tricky sell. Violet fragrances don't really sell very well because people always think Parma Violets. So Parma Violet sweets have ruined violet fragrances. But this sells well because it's not just violets. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm going to put the bottle down now if that's okay with everybody because I feel a bit uncomfortable holding it now. It's heavy, it's hurting my arm. I can't wield the force all day, every day. It's not good for me. Okay. So, if fragrancy was a fabric, my question, what would it be? This is a good question because I don't really know. In my head, I want to say velvet, but I don't think it is velvet. It's lighter than that. It's kind of sheer. What's kind of very textured, but a little bit more light than velvet? We all have much cleaner minds than I do, apparently. Hester, well, you know I, for one, do not. You have met me. Parma Violets is awesome, especially in a cocktail. Yeah, I love a violet. I love an aviation. I love, one of my favourite fragrances is Insolence by Guerlain, which is just like violet hairspray. I'm here for it all the time. Cashmere, yeah, totally, it's cashmere, isn't it? It's very breezy, this fragrance. And I was watching the advert earlier that they've got on, this is the latest advert I think they've got on the Kenzo website. And it is somebody walking along a city street and they're all sort of billowing around. It's very breezy and I think it's very nice. Very heavy wool, cotton, yeah. Satin, I can see that. Cashmere. Yeah. Yeah, Victorian lace, interesting. Damask. So many interesting fabrics. I love asking these questions because I think it gets you to really think about the fragrances. Right, shall we finish up with D? Let's go to D. I'm doing this in record time. This is surprisingly quick for me. We're doing well. We're on D already. I think when we were doing the first of the sheep lives, I think I was only on A at this point. Linen, yeah, the cloth used to wrap baby's fleece. It's definitely very textured, isn't it? But it's also very clean. Clean kind of fabric. It would be white, I think. Okay, so fragrance D. We move on to D. So we've had, just to recap, A, which was an aldehyde floral. B, which was a white floral. C, which was a fantasy floral. And then we have D. What is D? Well, another one that you felt was very familiar. This is an example of an abstract bouquet. So this is where an abundance of flowers exists, but no particular bloom stands out. And for me, this one showcases a bright, dazzling bouquet of white flowers dipped and dripping in gold. It's a very distinct image for me. I don't think it's that weird. I don't think it's that challenging. I would even say it's probably not that unique a fragrance or unusual. It's just very beautifully done. And I think that was really what the comments were saying. So Louise said it was her favourite and it felt more modern than a lot of other things in the box. Shelley said it was very feminine and pretty. Michelle said it was dainty, saying that it was initially fruity and it developed into a lovely soft floral. Bab said it was very shampoo, clean, fresh. Lisa said it was light, carefree and sparkling. And Amanda said she loved its warm creaminess. And, you know, looking at the comments, people saying it's effervescent, it's bright. It's very golden for me, this fragrance. So we'll spray this one. This is the last one. Again, I'm doing it hopefully out of shot. Okay. So for me, this is very golden crisp. It's very, the image I get when I smell this, especially on the top notes, is very, it's like beads of dew on fruit. So you've got like an apple and it's kind of dripping. It's very M&S advert, you know, this isn't just an apple, it's an M&S apple. Very delicate petals made from silk. It's painted in gold leaf, white musk, a soft breeze. But there's also this really lovely freshness to it, a watery quality that moves softly. It's radiant and it's clear. And I think it's one of those, it's a floral that's kind of been executed to wonderful precision and quality. It's just so precise and lovely. Very easy to wear, as Lynn is saying. Smells like a day at the beach. Totally get that. There's kind of something golden and sunlighty about it, isn't it? It's a bit solar. Daisy. Maybe it's Daisy. Could be Daisy. I just think this is lovely. And no, the answer is no, you cannot do E tonight. That would be very naughty. We're not doing E. You've got to wait for E. Hester says this was her favourite. Kim thought it was Be Delicious. Interesting. So all of those fragrances that everyone's mentioning, like Daisy and Be Delicious, are all very kind of fresh, dewy florals. So I think we're on the right track. You think the COVID vaccine has affected your sense of smell? Okay. I hope that comes back. I hope that comes back quickly. Talk and Review said this is in the top 3. Really enjoyed that, by the way, guys, your kind of live chat about these fragrances. Really interesting to see what your perceptions are and how you describe them. And the whole journey you went on with Fragrance Bee was very entertaining. So thank you for doing that. Smells of apples, not your favorite, makes me think of spring. I get all of that. I think it's really, really lovely. So this fragrance, and again, I think it will be no surprise to everybody. This is J'adore by Dior. This is the Eau de Parfum, the original. This came out in 1999, which is actually quite a long time now. It's 22 years ago. Created by the perfumer Calice Becker. It's inspired by the idea of gold. And the bottle is a very beautiful bottle, is inspired by the gold rings that were worn around sort of the long necks of tribal women. It's a fragrance that really reflects sunlight. It's a sunset, it's all warm and glowing. I would say it's perhaps not quite as resplendent as it used to be. Actually smelling this, I feel like it smells very different to the J'adore of the early millennium of 1999. I feel like it's a little bit like softer now. There's lovely dewy fruits in there of peach and apples, lush flowers. There's ivy leaf in here, which gives it this lovely sort of glowing sort of greenery, which comes from a material called glycolurel, I think, if I pronounce it right, and lovely soft musk. So it moves through sort of these different movements of like freshness of fruits to softness of flowers, and then sort of some greenery and musks. Carl says he's got the adverts in his mind. They are so iconic, those adverts, and I think it's Charlize Theron is one of those people who's like really perfect to embody this, because she's just Amazonian and wonderful. It's so easy to wear, and I think it's a perfect example of an abstract floral bouquet, because some people say this is a jasmine fragrance, and I'm like, I don't really think it is a jasmine fragrance. To me, it's a bouquet of flowers. It's an impression of white flowers. It doesn't specifically smell like any one flower to me. It's almost like they've kind of buffed all the edges off the flowers so you can't recognize what they are. But it's very modern. And I totally get what people say in terms of it being, you know, a bit shampoo-y. And I think what we have to remember is it's been on the market for 22 years. It's more likely that your shampoo smells of J'adore because J'adore is so popular, rather than the other way around. We've kind of been conditioned that way. It's like the way that people say number 5 smells like soap. Well, actually, soap smells like number 5 because number 5 was so successful that people started making, you know, more accessible ways to have that fragrance through soap and shower gels and things. So that's why we see it as soapy. You get more white florals than shampoo. That's good. I think this one's a lovely fragrance. Very easy to wear. I find it just kind of inoffensive. But I think actually in terms of floral fragrances, it's a really good example of a bouquet. And it's actually very, very pleasant. I was wearing it the other day in sort of preparation for this and kept catching whiffs of myself going, oh, I smell very lovely. Everyone Google the Rowan Atkinson advert of this. Well, I will be doing them afterwards. So yes, it's only pronounced it J'adore, like in the advert. I was in house, this is my funny story about someone pronouncing this fragrance name. I was in House of Fraser once, probably lurking around the Mugler counter with intent, as I did back when I was younger, and someone was very loudly professing their love for this fragrance, which they referred to as J'adore, which I think is absolutely not how you say it. It's J'adore, but I like that. She just went for it and called it what she wants. Your son bought you this with your first wages in Boots 7 years ago. Oh, that's cute. That's cute. Good for him. He's a good boy. This is so weird. I love J'adore and had a period where I always wore it, and I can't believe I didn't recognise it. Sometimes you get so familiar with things and you don't expect it, I think. Should we all start flinging our jewellery off? Well, Susie, that may take a while, you know, because I know you like your jewels. J'adore Moschino, 3 out of 4, not bad, just couldn't get B. Don't worry if you didn't guess what all of the fragrances were. That's kind of part of the fun, but it's not the whole point. It's all about trying to experience the fragrances, open your eyes to something new, and also, you know, figure out how you want to talk about them. That's what it's about. And B is a bit of an obscure one. It's messing with all your minds. Yes, we like to. That's what we do. So this one, I didn't give price. So this is the Eau de Parfum, I believe. Yes, it is. And this is £46 for a 30ml size. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. So I'm just going to recap just to go through what we were looking at, and then we'll round off. J'adore. I love a bit of J'adore, Carl. It's my favourite. J'adore. And I like a bit of Chanel number 5 as well. So we were looking at, in this kind of half of the box, four very classic styles of floral. So at first we had an aldehyde floral, which was Anais by Cacharel, which is this lovely sparkling, steamy, sort of sweet, powdery, crisp floral with a little bit of sort of a starchiness to it. Lovely. Aldehyde floral. And then we had B, which was the white floral that I don't think anybody had any particularly passionate reaction to. I think everyone just kind of just thought this was okay. Which was Gardenia Passion by Gutow. It's a white floral. It's a stonking great big tuberose, not a Gardenia, just to confuse things. Then we had our Fantasy Floral, which is my lightsaber bottle of Kenzo flower. Lovely impression of the poppy, which has no smell. And it's powdery and it's violetty and it's lovely. It's warm, it's fresh, it's mineral. It's really, really cool. I like this fragrance. I'm going to keep it by my bed, and just in case there's an intruder in the middle of the night, because that should see them off. And the last one was our Abstract Floral bouquet, and that was the beautiful J'ai Adoré by Dior. There we go. So the next live is on the 25th of March at 8 p.m. I will join you again, and that's when we will do E to H. You're going to have to wait a little bit longer to find out what E is. I'm sorry, but that's just how it works. We have April's box on sale, which is the fruity box. And that's until 5th of April, I believe. Someone can correct me in the comments from Escentual if I've got that wrong. Yes, was that everything I wanted to mention? Wanted everyone to interact in the Facebook group, obviously. The top 5 most active users in the group will be chosen at the end of the month to nominate 3 friends or family members to receive a free box, which is really awesome. Thank you, Escentual, for doing that. So the more you chat, the more chance you've got of being part of that. If you want to share this with your family and friends, I think that's a really lovely thing to do, especially even if they're not really perfumey people. It could be a good way to kind of connect with them and get involved. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? I thought we had an offer on fragrance at the moment, and I wonder if I'm wrong, but if Chelsea can confirm, because I thought I saw that. I'm just checking now. Because I thought we had 10. Do we have 10% off fragrance, Chelsea? Can you tell me? Is that right? Am I wrong? I am correct. Good. Thanks everyone for joining. I love this. This is so much fun. And can we just all give me kudos for getting this done in under an hour? Can we please? Thank you, because that's a record for me. Okay, so just to recap those last things, 10% off fragrance currently. The fruity box, which is April's box, is on sale until the 5th of April. And our next live is on the 25th of March at 8 p.m. I'm really glad you've all been enjoying the box. It's been really fun chatting with you. I know everybody wants to find out what E, F, G and H are, but that may take a bit of time because I'm not going to do that. You will have to bribe me significant amounts of money. Thank you, George, for mocking me over my camo. I will be direct messaging you after this to berate you. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody, this is really lovely. I'm going to go now, I'm going to sign off. Have a lovely evening. Please continue the discussions in the comments. If you want to say, you know, if there's anything that you're surprised by or thoughts, blah, blah, anything, let's keep it going. Thanks, Deborah. I'm really proud of myself for getting this in under an hour. That's just it's brilliant. And I'm going to, if I keep talking, I'm going to go over the hour, so I'm going to stop. Yes, have a lovely week, a lovely weekend, and I will see you all again in 2 weeks' time. And obviously I'll be all over the Essential scents because that's what I love. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a lovely evening. I'll see you soon, and goodbye.